Hey, this is Frankie from aboutscript, and in this video we're going to be going on with our HTML. We already did very basics in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, so now we're on the second round of tutorials and we'll just keep going through until I think we've got pretty much everything covered. So this is what we had at the end of the last video. We didn't change any of the HTML or CSS in our JavaScript video, so it's pretty much the same. If you don't have the latest code, you can get it at the tags section of the tutorial. This will be linked, and you're going with 1-JS, which is the most recent. I have the code loaded here, and you see we have some very basic HTML, some very basic CSS. We're just going to get rid of our CSS. We're also just going to leave the JavaScript because it's not impacting anything negatively. And save this. So now if we look at our page, we notice that it's, again, unstyled, and we just have some basic markup is what HTML is called. It's a kind of markup. In this tutorial, we're going to be going into some more practical things that you'll do with HTML and cover the basic HTML layout of a website. So before you can start making a website, you need to have an idea. What our website's going to be is we're going to say, we're going to make a website about why we love cats. And so up here we have this title on the page, we have some different links that you can go to, and we have some reasons and a list. At the bottom we have a little footer that gives the copyright, and we'll learn how to do the copyright symbol and all that. So in order to make HTML, you have to know some of the basic elements. Now there are around 50 elements, I would say. I don't exactly know. But we don't need all of them. You don't use most of them in every website. You don't use most of them in any websites because some of them aren't used anymore and there's a better way to do things. The old style of how HTML was done is you just put everything in the HTML. If you wanted to change how something looked, there was a tag that changed the font and you would wrap it in a font tag and it was just chaotic. So now what we do is we try to have the bare minimum of HTML and then put all the styling stuff in a style sheet. Helps keep things organized, and you can actually edit the HTML without having things indented 75 times, and it's just a lot better. So one of our most basic and most commonly used tags is called the div, and I don't actually know what it's short for, stands for, or anything like that, but it's basically a box that you put stuff in. It's a block element. There's two main kind of elements, and there's some other things that you can do, but we're not going to go into those. There's block elements and inline elements. What a block element means is that it will take up the entire width of whatever it's inside. So if you just put a big block element in, if one of these are all block elements, so if we inspect one of them and we hover over it, you see that it takes up the full width. And what that's causing is if these were not block elements and they were inline elements, what would happen is, let me just add a style. Okay, if we say display inline, what happens is they all just take up as much width as they need, and then things get put on the same line. There's times you use each of those. Spans are the inline version of a div. They just wrap around usually a piece of text, and they allow you to apply styles to it. For example, you could have a span with the class red, and then have a style that makes it have red text or a red background or whatever you want it to do. So those are just good for styling things. P is a paragraph, which you just put a a paragraph of text in that, and it's pretty simple. These are your headers. They're called H1, H2, H3, and it goes on until H7. Usually a page doesn't go beyond H4 at the most. It's kind of silly to go that far. Usually don't have that many levels of headings, and if you do, there's probably a problem. H1 is the biggest, and then H7 would be the smallest. There's also some of these things that are semantic tags, and before, between the old style of doing things and the new style of doing things, there was the div style of doing things, where you just had like hundreds of divs on your page, and that was how everything was laid out. These are basically nice named versions of divs. For example, a header, you would normally have a div with an ID of header or a class of header, but now you just have a single header element. You have a nav for your navigation links. That's where we're going to put this stuff. So if we look at these, we see that we've already found what some of these elements are going to be. I didn't write down lists, but we'll just go into that in the code. I forgot about that. This up here would be our H1, our biggest header on the page. And then this would be in our nav, we'd have maybe two divs or two spans next to each other, and we'll have some sort of background shading in there. This would be a paragraph. All this would be a paragraph. And then inside that, we have a list with a bunch of list items. This is our footer down here, and we'll learn how to do all of that. And that's going to be it. We're just going to have a very basic site, and it's not going to be very pretty in this video, but when we get to our next video, which is CSS2, we're going to learn how to make it look pretty. So let's get started. So to start this, we're going to just lay out the basic structure of our page. So we have a header at the top. If you don't know how to get what's already here, you have to watch the first HTML video because I'm not going to review it in this one. I'll put a link in the description and maybe a little annotation down here. So our header, and we're just going to do all our top level stuff first. Our header, and then we're going to have a div, and then we're going to have a footer. In our header, we're going to have our H1 element, and we're going to have our nav element. And in our nav element, we're going to have, let's do two span elements. And then we're going to, inside each of these, put an A element, which I didn't talk about, which is a link. It's called an anchor, but it basically tells you when you click this, you're going to some other place. So that's our header, and we're just going to type in the text right here. You just have to be careful because some things you can't put in. The most common example of what people forget is quotes. If you have like, my name is Frankie, you can't do that. You have to do a special thing, which we'll talk about when we get to the copyright at the bottom. So, why I love cats. Okay, and then what were our two link texts? Here we go. We have home and what is a cat? Home. What is a cat? And this is our main div here. So we're going to give it an ID of, oh, there's one thing I forgot actually. This isn't going to be a div. This is going to be an article. Because this is, well, it's basically an article about why we love cats. What I forgot to do is make something that you see in almost every website. You give an ID of container, and then you close that. So you put everything in the body of your page with an ID of container. And there's a very distinct reason that you'll see, but it's not going to be explained until the next video. So I guess you have to come back if you want to know. At the bottom here, we're just going to leave a C for the moment, and then we're going to say cat lover 67. That's the person's legal name. And then you put the year, 2012. Interestingly enough, there's nothing else you have to do to copyright. There's no legal paperwork or anything like that. This site is now copyrighted to cat lover. I'm sure that's illegal because it's not me, but I'm not too concerned. So then we make a paragraph. Or rather, yeah, we'll make a paragraph, but we'll put an H2 over the paragraph. That's going to be basically the title of our post. Because you see we want somewhat large text here. We want it to be a little bit larger than the text in here. Otherwise, we just put it all in a paragraph or two. And we're going to say, I love cats because. And in our paragraph, we're going to do something called an unordered list. There's ordered lists and unordered lists. The main difference is one, you get these asterisks, or well, they're usually just circles, and then the other one you get 1, and then 2, and then 3, and so on. But we don't need the order, so we're going to do an unordered list. That's UL or OL for an order list. And I'm not sure, I seem to have made some sort of mistake because it's telling me there's a problem. But in a list, you have something called list elements, and each one of these is basically aligned in your list. And we're going to say, I love cats because lorem ipsum, just making some stuff up here. And we're just going to keep going through with this. For our copyright, which we're going to do now, if you just put a C there, we'll reload the page so you can see what it looks like so far. Quite a bit of a difference. We have our header, we have our nav bar, we haven't put any styles on anything, so it's going to stay looking pretty much like this, except it's going to get a blue text and underline when we actually link it to something. I love cats because we have a list of things, and we just have the C at the bottom, which could be taken as a copyright or could not, but we're going to make it look extra nice. So there's certain characters that you can only use if you use these special things. So if you wanted this symbol here, you just copy and paste this into your code. If you want the copyright, you copy and paste this into your code. How it works is you have the and symbol, and that says, I'm telling you something about a character that I can't actually put in my HTML. And then you say what the character is. And a lot of characters have two ways to say them. You can either use the name of the character, or you can use the hexadecimal code for it. I believe that's the hexadecimal code. No, it's something else, I think. But we're just going to use this because it's easier to read. You always want to make your HTML as easy to read. It's not, you're trying to hide what it does. So we come back here and reload the page, and we see now we have a nice copyright symbol. Is there anything else we need to do? It's the main reason that you should create something like this, because it lays out everything that you need to do. Of course, I'm sort of distracted and I forget to put certain things in. For example, we're going to have another article. And in this article, we're going to have another H2, and we're going to say cute pictures. And now we're going to create something called an image tag. And how an image tag works is it does nothing unless you put attributes on it, so we have to add some attributes. The two that you use most often are source, and we're just going to leave that as an empty string for the moment, and alt. Now, a lot of people skimp out on this. They don't put an alt attribute on their image tags. That's very, very bad to do. The main two reasons are search engines, which motivates you to do it because your website won't be seen as likely otherwise. And you just describe the picture like cute cat. And also, a lot of people are using the internet now that can't see or have trouble seeing, so they maybe won't be able to see the picture, but they have programs that read the description of the picture to you. So you could say, I'm not sure what our cat's going to look like, but try to be as descriptive as possible without, having 7 paragraphs in there. And we have to link to a picture. So you would normally have a picture in a folder called image, which we could create, but I'm not going to go through the trouble of that right now. Or you can link to a picture on the internet, which is usually kind of sketchy and against rules, and it pisses off the people who host the website because it costs them money to send the picture to you, and they're not even visiting their website, and so on and so forth. So we're going to use one that I know is okay to use, and it's called JPEG2. So if we just link the image like this, that'll give us a nice picture of a cat. And we can make another one and say kitten, and another one and say kitty, and see if it gives us different pictures. So now we have some nice pictures of cats, and we'll learn how to make them all the same size, and that'll be in our CSS video. So I believe there's only one more thing we have to do, and that's set up these links to actually go somewhere. So we're going to say href, which you're just going to have to memorize that or look it up every time. If you just search HTML a tag, you can probably find a reference of something. I recommend using the MDN as opposed to W3 schools because it's, well, just generally better, and one that has an A tag, and it'll tell you all the syntax and all the different things you can do with it. If you just go to the top and then you hit examples, you'll see href, and then you just put a link there, and the text goes in the middle. So we want to just link to slash. Now that may seem sort of like a strange link, like that's some sort of kind of hack thing, and it kind of is. What it means is if we put slash ABC, because we have the slash there, it goes to it would go to whatever your site is and then add it to the end. If you didn't have that, say we were in folder DEF, maybe there was actually a file here, and we just said ABC without the slash, it would add it to the end. But if we say it with the slash, it replaces everything everything before the domain. This would normally say something like tutorial.localhost.com or something like that. So it would just replace everything if you use it. It's called an absolute link when it starts with a slash, and it's called the relative link when it doesn't start with a slash. Okay. So we're just going to say slash, which takes us back to our home page. You could also say something like index.html, and then we come here, and we click home, and it takes us to the same page. But it's best to not do index.html because search engines don't like it very much. And this one is going to link to an external link, and we're just going to find a Wikipedia article on cats. And paste that there. So now let's see what our page looks like. And I think it's pretty much done with our HTML. So you see it's somewhat basic, but we have all the text and stuff that we want on our page. And in the next video, we'll learn how to style it and make it cute, and maybe add a nice kitten background and stuff, and make a fun site. So thank you for watching the video, and see me next time when we go to CSS. Check out the code and try to do this yourself. Try to play around with it. Maybe have some different text, maybe link somewhere else, put a different image on the internet that you know of a cat, and I will see you when our next video comes out. So thanks.